a really easy tart for a lunch. I'm gonna do a savory tart. I'm gonna use these asparagus that I've been watching grow. This is very exciting. To finally harvest these, anything that's still small, close to the ground, I'm going to let continue growing. Dandelion leaves. I'm gonna go ahead and obviously wash all of these. There's definitely pollen on them. The bigger that the leaves get, the more kind of bitter they are. That's why I like to get the smaller ones. I'm gonna grab some foraged flowers because I think they're beautiful and they just make your food beautiful. So the main reason that I grow borage in general is for the enjoyment of these blue flowers in all of our salads, but also because they're a really big bee attractor. And so I want to bring the bees to my garden, so I really like to plant borage. Also, if these are chopped and cooked, they have a really nice flavor. They just have a little bit of a prickliness to them. That's why they're meant for more savory stews. But you can, really sort of chop them enough and massage them in a way that they'll be really good on the tart. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and pull them up. This is, let's see, I think that's actually a spring onion. It's perfect. I'm gonna sacrifice this one too for our tart. All right, hop on over this way. Okay, I'm also gonna get some chives. Whenever you are cutting your herbs and veggies, it really is better to use scissors or a knife to get a nice clean break, but notice I'm just pulling from the very base of the plant. You don't want to come along and cut up here. Okay, I'm going to grab some parsley. I'm going to get a couple of these mustard greens that overwintered. Chop them finely, and when you add other flavors, they just end up having like a really nice complexity rather than a bite. So we'll talk about that. Here are some of my radishes. Some of them migrated a bit, as you can see, right? That could have been how I planted them. I have the feeling it has more to do with how things really flowed when I was watering, and maybe just some water streams moved everything. So I'm picking these right now because I want to put them on my tart. Radishes really don't do well with crowding. There's some things that you don't have to thin, but radishes really do benefit from some form of thinning because otherwise they just don't have enough room. I'm just gonna wash this. This little teeny tiny beginning of a radish actually tastes amazing. So I'm not gonna sacrifice that. I'm just gonna wash it. I'm gonna keep everything, root and all. That's gonna go in our tart. I'm just gonna wash the dirt off. This is such an arugula forest. I've decided to let it really just be. It's gonna self-propagate all the time, which means that down at the base I'm going to get new growth every single time that these go to seed. Right now they're in the pre-seed stage, in their flowering stage, and all the flowers are delicious. I'm going to grab some of those. A little bit of fresh oregano. I'm going to dive in here and do that. Okay. And I am going to head inside and I'll show you either some stages, probably in pictures of what I'm going to do here, or the final product, depending on what I can pull off today. Here is going to be my Tart crust. So I have 1 cup of Namaste gluten-free flour, and I have 1 cup of almond flour. This is blanched. I did a heavy pinch of salt. If I were to guess, I would say a good teaspoon, maybe around a teaspoon. Because this is a savory tart, I'm also gonna add some herbs and pepper to this. It's probably a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. You can totally skip those if you were like, I don't want pepper in my crust. This is just organic Italian seasoning. You could use fresh herbs for this for sure. I have so many fresh herbs that are going on top that I kind of just am going with what I have here. Okay, so what I did already was I put 1/4 cup of butter. I also put 1/4 cup of this fair trade, non-GMO palm shortening. I have lots of opinions about palm, but I had it in the cupboard and I'm using it today. And then I have 1/4 cup of coconut oil. So it's 3 different fats. And the reason I'm kind of playing around with this is I don't want to use all my butter because it's really hard to kind of get that these days. Also, we are vegetarian, pescatarian, borderline vegans. We're trying not to eat a ton of butter, but I still really love the flavor of it. So I'm mixing it into a lot of things. Now the thing that I'm doing differently here today is normally with a pie crust, you would add 1/4 cup of chilled ice water. I'm gonna get this down to like the pea-shaped balls that you typically want to get with your pie crust. So instead of using 1/4 cup of ice water, I'm gonna use 1/2 cup of sourdough starter. So that means that will bring me up to like the standard 2.5 cup flour to 3/4 cup fat ratio that you'll see for most of your basic pie crusts, like Joy of Cooking, you know, a lot of other ones that just have these variations on that. And also, because this is gluten-free, I like to add like literally just a pinch of baking soda. You don't need to do that at all, especially if you're just working with a standard pastry crust flour. I'm gonna do 2/4 cup, so that's what I've got, my 1/4 cup measure, 2/4 cups of my sourdough starter. It's really light and beautiful and airy today. I fed it a couple times yesterday because I felt like it was kind of getting a little too sour. I think it's really happy right now. I treated it with a little kombucha starter too. Okay, here we go. Stirring that in. So already it's nice and it's wet, but it's not too wet. You can still see there's all the crumbs in there. For a pie crust, you really don't want to disrupt those crumbs too much. So what I'm going to do is just handle it gently. I am going to roll this into a nice little ball. I'm going to chill it, and then I'll roll it out between 2 pieces of parchment paper. I am going to bake it first, pre-bake it, before I add my fillings. Oh, it smells really good too. Too thin. I just feel like I wanted a really thick crust today. So what I did is I actually am pressing in all kinds of crust pieces. So what I think would be best going forward is for you to just press it in. Don't even bother with rolling it out. I know that there's science behind rolling out sorry, my dog is whining. I know there's science between rolling it out because it causes some really nice, you know, layers, and that's what makes for all the flakiness. But with this one, because of the sourdough, it's got a good kind of like wetness and stretch to it that I don't normally have with my pie crust, and I feel like it's already meant to be more of a rustic tart. So that's what this is looking like. And I just see, instead of doing too much with the edges, all I'm doing is just a very simple flute. I like the almond flour in pie crust in general. I think it makes everything kind of nice and rich. Okay, so I'm going to pull out my pre-baked crust here, which I have to say I think is gorgeous. I really do. I don't mean that in a self-congratulatory way at all. I realize I should probably point that out when I say things like that. I just really think it looks really beautiful. It's not the same kind of like just buttery crumble that you would get from a crust. I can feel it in there for sure. Down here it's still got a little bit of a doughy quality to it, which I could probably continue baking, but I'm okay with that because I'm going to put it back in for a while. This is what I'm going to put inside now. Isn't that pretty? I think that's so pretty. So I pre-cooked a few red potatoes, and all I did with these was just peel them. You could totally leave the peel on. The only reason I peeled them was that it just there were a bunch of little like kind of marred spots. So I'm doing that at the base. They're already cooked almost enough to eat. So I have salt and garlic, and I cook these in a good high heat oil. In this case, I'm just using a ton of coconut oil. Okay, I'm gonna put in my arugula and my dandelion. So that's all gonna go in there. So I don't know if you remember or followed any of our stories, but the other night I made some baguette, kind of Subway style sandwiches, and I made some Italian tofu. So I found some of this in the fridge while I was putting this together. I'm gonna throw that in. Here is all of our chopped parsley. Now I'm going to do all of my chives. Here's my mustards. There's my borage. And then what I'm gonna do now is really lightly whisk up my eggs. I got 4 eggs, oh my gosh, between our 3 laying chickens, because we have basically 3 that lay and 2 that, well, we're actually not sure. Maybe we have 4 that lay. One of them really doesn't seem to, and that's okay because she's beautiful. All right, so what I like to do when I'm making kind of a tart, this is different from a quiche, very similar, but different because it's not so heavy on the eggs, right? All I do with this, sometimes I'll really whisk them. In this case, all I'm doing is breaking the yolk. I'm stirring it just a bit. That's really different from like if I was gonna make a really cream-based quiche. I'm breaking up the yolk and I'm breaking up the white because both of those are distinct. I'm gonna pour that over the top of this and try to get it evenly in there. I was debating whether to just crack each egg and sort of make a little nest in there, but then I realized that this was gonna be pretty. So that's what kind of like tipped me over the edge. All right, now, on the top of all of this, I am piling my spring onions. So this, I wanna get really well cooked. That's why I'm putting it up at the top. I'm basically layering from what was already cooked before, the potatoes, to the things that are just gonna be really wiltable, like all my greens, right? And then I put my chives, and then I'm putting my onions because these onions are gonna get grilled on the top. Here's my beautiful, beautiful springtime asparagus. I could not be more thrilled about that. I can't wait until we get enough to really work with. We're just in our first year of harvest with that. Here's what I did with the dandelions. So what you do is you just pull the green part off and you break up the dandelion so that it's just this really pretty little fluffy yellow bit. Now that's gonna get pretty well caramelized, but that's okay. I'm just putting it on there for kind of just a little bit of a touch of color and flavor. The borage flour is gonna put on the end, let's see, with the arugula flowers. Those would not survive this. A little bit of olive oil all over everything. So in this case, I'm gonna do 2 capfuls. Of olive oil, sprinkle of salt, and some pepper. And then, because we have a bunch of cheese lovers in here, at the very end, about 5 to 10 minutes before I pull it out, I'm gonna grate some mozzarella and throw that on there. This I just want to separate a bit. Isn't that so pretty? It's so pretty.